Okay, this is Rodrigo Fuentes from ListenLoop, and we're here with Marketing Talk. Here with Charlie Liang from Engagio. Charlie, tell us a bit about yourself and Engagio.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for having me on, Rod. So I'm the director of marketing at a company called Engagio, founded by former Marketo founder John Miller. So I'm in charge of kind of account-based everything here at Engagio, ops, a little bit of evangelism, and we're doing a lot here at Engagio with a pretty small team, and just really fun to be part of it.
That's great. You guys put out amazing content. I get a lot of email newsletters, but I always look to the Engagio ones. And I think with that, I'd love to hear your definition of ABM, or account-based everything, as it were.
Yeah. During John's presentations, he likes to show a chart. I don't know if you guys ever have seen one, but there's a chart of Google search results for the term ABM and the trend and kind of when like Engagio was started here, and then you can see it go up from there. So it's kind of cool. So, account-based everything is not a new piece, but it's a trending kind of practice that marketing and sales organizations are really finding value out of, and therefore it's kind of spreading like a wildfire. And account-based marketing is kind of only probably half of the equation, right? Like, you need to be working with sales and sales development to truly realize the value out of your account-based efforts. And that's what we call kind of account-based everything. We think we're a pioneer for account-based everything, and it's going to be another kind of space that's going to be furthering account-based marketing and taking off in the next year or so.
Now, if you had to break it down into its components, what would you say the key elements of an account-based everything strategy?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, there's really 5 or 6 key steps that successful account-based marketing and account-based sales development organizations have kind of adopted, right? Before you go to market, you need to know the people the companies that you're dealing with. So you have to identify your ideal customer profile, right? And you can't do that, work with your sales team to identify the key attributes, right? Like, for us, it's what CRM they're using. Are they using Salesforce? Are they using a marketing automation platform? Not a must-have, but if they're using Salesforce, we can work with them. Our sweet spot is kind of the 100 to 2,000 employee range currently, but we're moving up market pretty rapidly. So that ideal customer profile needs to be set first, and then you need to go and find all the accounts that fit that definition. And you can't do that without great data. So you have to start with the great data, and you have to get data on all the accounts that you could possibly sell to. Now, once you've done that, built out the profile, selected the target accounts with your team, then it's time to build out the contacts inside those target accounts, right? You're still, in account-based marketing, you're still selling to people, but you want to go and find the key personas that matter at those companies. So get good data, find the contacts, find the accounts first, and then find the contacts. And then once you have the contacts, now it's time to start running campaigns into the target accounts, right? And when you're running a campaign, usually I like to start with an objective, right? Like you might have a awareness objective where you're just trying to get people to see your brand and just know, when someone asks them what Engagio does, they can speak 3 words about it. They're account-based everything. They're account-based marketing and sales, right? Or you might want to run a campaign dedicated to driving meetings, right? So that's more of you have to involve your sales team in that process, because they're going to be the ones following up. They're going to be the ones, like, you're going to try to soften the ground, whether it's a door opener, direct mail piece, and then there's a follow-up sequence after that. Whether you want to sprinkle account-based advertisements into that mix, social, yada, 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 right? So like the important part is to really start with an end goal, and to, without an end goal, your account-based efforts won't be successful. So four steps really. So, find your, get good data, find your accounts, find your contacts. And I'm kind of paraphrasing, like when you're finding accounts, you have to get account insights as well. So there's a accounts insights piece that you have to do after you find your contacts, because you want to know kind of the trigger points, you want to know their org chart, you want to know who, the reporting structure. And then once you do that, then you can start executing campaigns and getting, awareness or meetings inside these accounts that you really want to get into.
Yeah, those are all definitely great points about how to orchestrate and prepare the ground for an account-based effort. Question that I hear a lot from marketers out there is, how does an account-based effort fit into the overall marketing stack? I've seen people who take a lot of their existing softwares and try to kind of hack them to accomplish an account-based effort. I've seen people get tools that are specific for like Engagio. How do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, and so that's a really good question. I think, the last decade or so, we've kind of gotten drunk on inbound. And what I mean by that is, there was a rise of content marketing, and John was part of that revolution as well, right? Within Marketo. There was a lot of inbound being done, and a lot of an ecosystem built around, optimizing inbound. So the tool stack for that ecosystem is actually pretty built out. Like, you look at Marketo, for example, that's a really great example of a tool that's optimized for kind of, lead-based approaches. Now, part of the problem ABM was so hard before, and it's getting easier, is, part of the problem was that there was just no tools available for account-based marketing or account-based everything, right? And that's, very rapidly changing as people are seeing value in going outbound versus, the traditional kind of inbound activities, right? So, tools like ListenLoop, for example, tools like Engagio, for example, that really help address the core problems that people are facing when they're trying to tackle the account-based everything approach. But that doesn't mean companies don't stop doing inbound, right? You're still doing events, you're still putting content out there, you're still net fishing. But if you really want to accelerate your growth and hit your numbers and land those, spin less of your sales reps cycles on smaller deals that might move the needle incrementally, and focus them more on kind of landing the whales, that's where kind of account-based everything comes into play. So, internally at Engagio, we're about 50-50 mix, right? We spend a good amount of effort on inbound and events and net fishing. And then we also spend a fair amount of effort on the outbound front, kind of landing meetings and opportunities with the select group of target accounts that are in our sweet spot that we really, really want to pitch to. So, to answer your question, I think the tool stack for inbound is well built out, and the tool stack, you're starting to see leaders emerge in the account-based everything and outbound and account targeting tool stack, such as, Engagio, such as ListenLoop, that help you accomplish those activities much easier than, without those tools and doing it manually.
Yeah, and I mean, that are definitely great points, and it kind of brings me to the next question about measurement. This is often something that comes up for the marketer, right? Everyone's pressured right now to show ROI, show results. And I'm curious how you think about measuring your account-based efforts, both on the short term and the long term.
Yeah, that's a good question. We're kind of going through, we just went through, 2017 planning, so this was very top of mind. I think there's a whole new set of metrics in the account-based world. Well, I think by definition, everything should be account-based, right? So, I come from the demand gen world as well. So, before we used to measure names, leads, and then meetings, opportunities. And then the all important MQL was the kind of the transition point between marketing and sales. It was a good metric, but it in the account-based world, it's kind of irrelevant. So we really think the MQA is a better measurement, because when sales is selling deals, they're not like, when they ring the gong, they're not saying, oh, I sold, Frank at so-and-so company. I'm not selling Jane at this so-and-so company. They sell logos, right? So why confuse like leads and logos? We're just start with accounts and go with accounts the whole way. So we look at everything on an account-based approach, whether it's inbound activities or outbound activities. Now, the other thing that's important that we kind of invented, or John invented here in Engagio, is the concept of engagement minutes, right? So engagement minutes, we think, is the evolution of lead score for a couple different reasons, because engagement minutes is account centric, right? Like when you're doing a deal, when you're doing a large enterprise deal, you're not doing a deal with one person at a company. The interaction happens with multiple parties on their end, and it happens with multiple parties on our end. So you want to aggregate all that interaction, because that data is going to be very useful for you as your sales team is working through the deal, as even before that, as your sales development team is prospecting those accounts. So engagement minutes, we look at engagement minutes up to MQA and up to meeting and up to opportunity, and we kind of look at that breakdown of what is causing those engagement minutes. For example, did they go to a webinar? Did they go into, did our SDR team prospect them? Do they stop by our booth at a trade show? And we work that backwards to kind of our marketing programs and our marketing activities, and kind of see what's working and what's not, right? And then we do a cut versus target accounts and non-target accounts. And, as we're planning, one of the goals might be to say, hey, we have 1,000 target accounts. We don't have meetings with 300 of the target accounts yet. How do we get meetings with those 300 target accounts, right? So again, to my previous point on starting with an objective, it's important to have the KPIs, but as you're doing planning, like, you want to act on those KPIs. So, as we're doing planning, we'll set an objective, and then we'll kind of work backwards from that. So using the previous example, I meant, target accounts, 300 accounts that don't have meetings. How do we set meetings with these target accounts? Well, now we can have a something to work toward, right? So we can break down kind of our engagement minutes that has been the most successful in converting marketing qualified accounts to meetings, or even before that, target accounts to marketing qualified accounts. And we do more of that because it's been successful in getting us into the target accounts in the past. So to answer your question about KPIs, we think everything should be at the account level. We think that you should measure things by engagement minutes. You can still have different thresholds depending on how good the account is. Like the target account will have lower threshold, and kind of outside your ICP will have really high thresholds. So account level, engagement minutes, and also you still want your traditional kind of down funnel stages, right? Internally, we use aware, known, aware, kind of, we borrow from, it's a slight tweak from the Series Decisions model: known, aware, MQA, meeting, opportunity, and then customer. But all those are at the account level, so we can count, accounts versus individual people.
I like that approach a lot. And one of the things I'm really curious about is, where do you draw the line in your engagement minutes for each of these different stages? Knowing, of course, that's not an exact science, but I'm curious how you come to those numbers.
Sure. The simple answer is to just ask sales, right? Like we'll sit in a room with the sales development leaders, with the VP of sales, the head of sales development. We call it account development here, but I'm just using sales development as a familiar term. We sit in a room with all those people, and we just ask them, hey, like, let's just go through a few examples. Like, let's say, a director of marketing at one of your target accounts, let's say they go watch a webinar, and they attend the webinar. Do you want to, is that a marketing qualified account by itself? Right, that's a simplistic example. They'll probably say yes. Another example is, let's say 3 people at a non-target account. One person stops by a booth, the other goes to the website, and another person watches a video on the, on our website, does that constitute as a target account? So we'll kind of work backwards from that, and then kind of establish a threshold of engagement. I mean, internally, we currently have 3 funnels. Our funnel 1 is target accounts. Funnel 2 is non-target but qualified accounts, and funnel 3 is outside of our ICP, so non-target, non-qualified accounts. And our threshold for funnel 1 is about 30 minutes. Well, it's not about 30 minutes. It's 20 minutes for smaller companies and 30 minutes for bigger companies. And we define that with an employee range cutoff that we work backwards from our data that we have in Salesforce. So 20, 30 minutes for funnel 1, 40 minutes for funnel 2, and then 150 engagement minutes for funnel 3 accounts. So that's, but it's always in motion, right? Like if our ADR team has a lot to work through, we might raise the threshold for a temporary time being. Vice versa, if they're a little bit light, we'll lower the thresholds. So it's all kind of a constant adjustment and based off of feedback from sales.
That's really smart. I like how you essentially normalize the engagement minutes depending on the employee size of a given company, to account for the fact that, hey, a big company has lots of employees, which could mean that more engagement across each employee for it's across the same engagement level for a smaller company. Is that the idea?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, it's exactly the idea. At larger companies, the buying centers, people involved in a deal will be larger. I think someone came out with a study. I think the average is 6.8. Obviously, I think that probably is about right for a larger company. But if you're a smaller company of 50 employees, the marketing team might be just 3 people. So you're not going to have that many people involved. So we accounted for that by increasing the threshold for engagement minutes.
Yeah, like I said, real smart. So one of the things I really like what you're doing on EngageEO's site and blog is the Engagio on EngageEO series. Tell us a little bit about that and you've drawn so far.
Yeah. So we publish a lot of content. We have a lot of people that are passionate about account-based marketing and sales here at Engagio, and they like to put their thoughts on paper. But we also listen to kind of what the market is asking for. We have over 100 customers now, and our customers are asking us. They look at Engagio as a thought leader, right? Obviously, we have John Miller. But we have a lot of our executive team, and we have a lot of kind of marketing, not marketing automation, but we have a lot of marketing royalty here at Engagio, right? So they look at us as, I'm not part of it, but there's other people here that are part of it. They look at us as a thought leader and more than just a software platform. So our customers are involved in a Slack channel, and the ABM best practices is one of the channels. And it blows up. So there's a lot of questions, right? Everybody wants to know how we're doing marketing and how we're doing account-based sales development and how we're doing, account-based sales here at Engagio. So we decided to, and another one of our tenets, we have, principles internally that we like to follow. Another one of our tenets is freedom and transparency. So we're pretty transparent about what we do. And we decided to share with the world kind of everything that we're doing and kind of like a behind the scenes look at how we run our campaigns, what's involved, what do we measure, basically kind of like a lay of the land of start to finish. How do we run a successful account-based marketing and sales development and sales campaign? So the first installment of that series came out a couple days ago. I wrote it up, and it's about our first kind of account-based everything campaign. Go to engageo.com/blog. You can read all about it. It's a fairly lengthy article, so save it for some bedtime reading. But we'll be coming out with more articles around key topics that we get a lot of questions on. Upcoming, there's I think you asked about this earlier, Rod, where it's demand gen versus ABM. Like, what's the optimal mix? What are the differences, right? How should I allocate my resources? So we'll be talking about that in the next blog post. And then after that, we'll be talking about, we get a lot of questions about MQAs and engagement minutes. And from all the way from why should we use MQA's engagement minutes to how do I set it up? So we'll be going through that in the third installment of the blog post. It's probably going to be coming out semi-frequently. Look for it every week or two, but engageo.com/blog is your resource for Engagio on EngageEO Series.
One of the things I worry about when people reveal the secret sauce of how to do effective campaigns is a scenario where we'll end up in a world maybe 5 years from now, predictable revenue approach. And it was, I remember the first year or two of that, when it first caught on, man, did it work. It was amazing. And now I think we're, God, I hope the tail end of that approach. I mean, the emails that are coming through are cookie cutter, straight from the book, and yeah, there's something just galling about that sometimes, and it makes following the recipe right and more annoying for everyone who's receiving it. So not so much a question, but if you could reflect on it, what does the world look like 5 years from now when everyone's on the ABM bandwagon and in this approach? Is it a better world for all? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question, Rod. I don't have a crystal ball, but I can kind of think about the trends that are happening and kind of project them forward and kind of anticipate. Like I'll kind of use Marketo and marketing automation just because it's kind of recent of mine as an example. Like Marketo was founded in 2006 and didn't really hit traction until probably 2009. 2009, you had your kind of early adopters, right? And then you had your kind of big wave in 2011, 2012, and onwards. And it's kind of, if you look at the growth trajectory of Marketo, it's been kind of steady, right? It's not exponential, it's not slowing down, but it's kind of like a straight line. So my point is that marketing automation was for inbound as what we're doing is for outbound, right? And I think the pendulum is definitely swinging. I think you're right. Account-based marketing is just going to be called good old marketing in 3 to 5 years, as companies are realizing that they should adopt an account-first approach. They're thinking about it that way anyway, but I think the marketing, the inbound trend has kind of thrown us off that track. But I think we're going back to our roots and starting with kind of what sales thinks about, which is accounts first and then the persona second. So I think to answer your question, I think in the next 3 to 5 years, I think you're going to see a lot of adoption into account-based activities, and then people getting a lot, marketers getting a lot better at those activities, right? And part of that, I think a big part of that, and I know, ListenLoop does a lot of this as well, is personalization, right? And why is personalization important, right, in an account-based world? Well, first of all, you're still selling to people. And second of all, as companies are narrowing their focus on target accounts, you're all probably selling to the same people. Now, guess what? Those people are probably getting bombarded with efforts to get their attention. So they're going to respond, but the bar is getting higher and higher. So you have to be more and more sophisticated when selling to your target accounts, because chances are a lot of people are going to be selling to those same kind of decision makers. So the bar is getting higher. There's going to be a lot more focus on personalization. And there's going to be technology is going to continue to get better to help solve those hard problems that get marketers the attention of the people that they really want to talk to in the accounts that they care about.
It almost reminds me of I've heard a phrase when people are in an RFP with a bunch of other companies. They call it the beauty pageant, right? And this almost feels like the attention pageant, right at the top of the funnel, right? I mean, you gotta personalize better than anybody else in order to get their attention with the initial messaging that you've prepared for them. So it's yeah, that definitely I agree. That's where the world is headed.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at these sales cycles, the sales cycles are long. It's going to be like your first interaction with that target account. That the interview starts there, right? It doesn't start when you jump on a call with them, when you jump on a WebEx, or go to a webinar or a meeting with them. It doesn't start when you show up on their onsite, and it doesn't start when they send you an RFP. It starts in that first cold outbound interaction. It starts in that first ad they see of you when they don't know about you. It starts in that direct mail package. So, just like you're going on a first date, you wouldn't dress sloppy, you wouldn't be a slouch on a first date. So why would you waste that first interaction by sending them kind of, stuff that's half-assed, right? Your target accounts, these are the people, sometimes you might only have one chance to get into these target accounts. So make sure that first impression, that you don't, that first impression is as crisp as that last impression before you deliver that contract to them, for them to sign and be your customer.
God, but everyone loves shortcuts and hacks. And
no shortcuts in target account marketing. We got to up our game as marketers and salespeople.
Right? Yeah, I agree with that. Well, let me change tracks here and ask you one or two biggest challenges to implementing an account-based effort.
Yeah, man, I gotta. There's a lot of challenges. It's not as hard as it looks, but I think where I see a lot of organizations like falter a bit is too much planning and strategizing and not enough doing, right? It's important to plan and strategize, but you want to, you don't need to get a fully fleshed out plan. You don't need to know what you're doing for the next 12 months. You don't need to map out those activities to get started with ABM, right? Like, the sooner you realize value from ABM, the more valuable ABM will be for you. That's kind of a paradox, but it's, so I think, basically, just do it, right? Strategize a little bit, but make your planning cycles short, right? Like, plan out for 1 or 2 months. Like, all right, so let me go get the data for these accounts. Let's go work with sales. Let's get alignment. That's the other important thing. Get alignment. Make sure everyone's bought in. You don't need to sell the sales that you're doing account-based approaches. They've been waiting for you to do this for years, right? So they're on board. Now you just got to get your marketing team on board. Your CMO is probably hearing from the CEO and the VP of sales, hey man, we got to do more of this ABM. Like, this makes a lot of sense. So you got to get them on board and basically give them a 1 to 2 month plan on what you're going to do initially, and that usually starts with the data, right? So just go do it. The other part of it is, I think marketers like you and me, Rodrigo, like we talk a lot about the marketing stack and the tech, but the tech is actually really important when you choose. There's a lot of vendors. Every B2B marketing vendor has uttered the word ABM at some point in the last 12 months. Everyone wants a piece of the pie, but not all ABM is the same, right? If you think about all the things involved in ABM, there's a lot of different tactics, right? I talked about kind of the data. I talked about the account selection. I talked about getting the contacts. I talked about the analytics and the KPIs and the platform for it all to work. You got to get your CRM in place, like leads, contacts. They should all be treated as equal in the land of account-based marketing, because all you really care about is accounts. So you don't really care about leads or contacts. You should have visibility at the account level. So make sure you work with a vendor that has lead to account matching. And also, so the stack is very kind of important, because when you go and say, all right, well, this vendor is doing ABM, I only have budget for one ABM vendor. I'm only going to do them. Most organizations are not like that, but make sure you choose a platform. And when you do go and do the channels, read up on what channels are working for companies your size and your vertical, right? Like, LinkedIn is a great channel. Account-based ads is a great channel. Email is always a great channel. Phone is okay, right? You want, you're seeing a little bit of diminishing returns on phones, because people aren't picking up, cold calls anymore. So you want to tee it up and make it a warm call. So I think between email, ads, social, and the phone, make sure when you go to the market and select your channels that you read up on what's the most effective, right? Because ads are effective, email is effective, social is effective, but make sure you know what's effective in your industry and the people that you're selling. And the people makes a little bit difference as well, because if you're selling to CFOs versus an SDR rep, the channel mix is going to be different. So make sure you kind of think about where they're spending their time and target accordingly. So the two challenges are, not too much planning and not enough doing. And the other challenge is not digging deeper into ABM vendors and understanding what exactly it is that they do and what can they do to help solve your ABM go-to-market strategy.
Excellent. Thank you, Charlie. Well, that's it for us, folks. This has been an awesome session of marketing talk. And Charlie, is there anything you want to leave us with before we end today's chat?
So I'm going to do so John Miller came out with 2 comprehensive guides. Some of you may have seen it. 124 pages on everything you need to know about how to do account-based marketing, and 142 pages on everything you need to know about how to do account-based sales development. Both are equal partners and equally important in account-based everything. EngageEO.com/guide to download.
Like Charlie said, some light reading for your, when you're in bed, something like that.
Is that 270 pages? It'll be a breeze, but it'll be very, very educational.
Good. Excellent. Well, thank you everyone for attending and participating. Charlie, we'll hope to have you back soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Rod.